All right, guys, welcome everybody to another episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, with my partner, Sean. How you doing tonight, Sean Williams?
Doing good, man. I survived the weekend. Although I did not get to partake of football on Sunday because I had to work the night before and uh, had to pay the dues the next day. Uh, but we want to thank everyone for joining us. Shit, I can't even talk. Joining us on Under the Dome tonight. We're here every Tuesday night to disrupt people's thought processes and so on. You can follow us on Facebook on the Under the Dome podcast page. You can follow us on Twitter by these handles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go, right there.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. We love you guys, and we're here for you. So, to someone who missed the entirety of the game, with the exception of two plays before Davenport sacks Teddy two gloves to end the game, give me the narrative of what we saw.
You missed vintage Drew Brees. When I did my good, bad, and ugly, I said that was Drew Brees as we all remember him for his entire career with the Saints. I think he only missed on 5 passes or maybe 7 passes, and 4 of them were throwaways. You find out the Saturday or the Friday before that Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders are not playing. So what happens is we get Marquez Callaway, who was one of my favorite undrafted free agents, steps up, has a huge game, led all the Saints receivers, had a touchdown, and he did not. They took it off the board, claiming that Traquan Smith, I couldn't think of the guy's name. Traquan Smith committed offensive pass interference on a rub route, basically, or a pick. Basically, the cornerback got beat, and he did a flop. And it's like, oh my God, look what they did. And, the official throws a flag because he reacts to that. And you even get it's not Mike Pereira, but it's the other guy who used to be in charge of the officials before Al Riveron come on, and he's looking at it going, I wouldn't have called that because, you can see Traquan, he didn't stop and block. He was more or less trying to squeeze in between the cornerback and the safety, and they kind of squeezed him in, and he hit him, and he threw his arms up, and he tried to finish his route, which is what you're supposed to do to avoid the penalty for offensive pass interference. And because the cornerback flopped, Callaway didn't get the really gift he deserved in that game, the touchdown pass. And at the time, I called it a keep it close call because had that touchdown counted, the Saints would have been up 28-17. That's an 11-point lead. They had to settle for a field goal, making it 24-17. Now it's a one-score game. They get that, and as a result, the Panthers are able to go down the field, score a touchdown, make it 24-all, and that's when you were going to come in with the Davenport play. But Kamara was incredible, made another unbelievable third down catch. They got called for holding on first down. Second down, they picked up 6 yards, so it's 3rd and 14. Little dump off pass to Kamara. Kamara just burns a guy, comes down the field. They go to knock him out of bounds. Just before he goes out of bounds, he sticks the ball out just enough to get the first down. Morstead was inactive. They never punted. So it was 3rd down efficiency was on point. We were, I think, 12 of 15 or 12 of 14. They had never Saints set another record. I think they've never had an offense have that higher percentage with that many attempts on third down. And Brees set another record too. A pass to Marcus Callaway was his 7,000th completion for his career.
Well, I noticed
completions.
I noticed when I got to work that night and was watching the recaps of the day's games that the working narrative is that Brady is now in the lead.
Yep, he got that one touchdown because the Callaway touchdown didn't count. Brees only had 2 touchdowns. He got his third touchdown, his normal jump over the top, stick the ball out, but that Callaway touchdown didn't count, so he had 2. And yeah, the Bucs ran up the score, threw a touchdown pass inside the 1 just so Brady would get that record.
Yeah, all this time I've been trying to think, what is it? Why is Brady still playing? It's not to be competitive. I doubt that very seriously. And then Sunday, all of a sudden, it all made sense. He wants to take that away from Brees.
He wants every record. He wants to play New England and beat New England so he can say, like Brees and Peyton, that he has beaten every team in the league. Because that's the only team he hasn't beaten was New England because he hasn't played them yet. He wants to have the yardage, completions, touchdowns.
He's not going to.
Well,
he can't play long enough to get all of those.
He's hoping that if this is Brees' last year, he's going to play one more year to get those to try and catch up to Drew. Oh yeah, it's pathetic. It really is, and that's why he signed the nutcase. He had the nutcase come aboard.
Yeah.
That was the other big news last week was that that they went to Arkham Asylum and got AB out of there, and because for whatever reason, Mike Evans and Chris Callaway just are not his kind of receivers. And if he could get Julian Edelman from the Patriots, he'd go get him too.
Julian was ready to pack Sunday.
Well,
they looked like they played like the village idiots against.
They have no quarterback. I mean, all this talk all these years about, all this year, I should say, about Drew Brees looking washed. Cam Newton is washed. Cam Newton was washed last year.
Well, Cam Newton is used up, man. And I've said that for 3 years.
Exactly. He's a very old 30-year-old quarterback. You can see it.
Ron Rivera used him up.
Well, yeah. Yep.
Well, let me ask you this. One of the, I speak all the time of the narratives. One of the narratives that was actually acknowledged on the air on the NFL Network that night was that Michael Thomas is actively seeking a trade.
That's Mike Florio's bullshit.
Yeah.
Mike Florio started that stuff. Sean Payton, in fact, had 2 tweets about it. Payton's first tweet that Sunday was insiders are on the outside. In other words, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So Florio came back Sunday night and yesterday, or maybe this morning it was, I thought it was last night, basically saying that, the Saints didn't get any offers, and there is no intention to trade him because, but they were willing to listen to offers if someone was interested. And Peyton shared a GIF of a kid riding his bicycle backwards, so basically showing that, you're backpedaling because you're
just trying to cover your own ass.
Exactly. It's made up news. It's fake news. I mean, you hear that term so much, but that's the sports media is filled with that stuff. It's what I told you when we talked about what Mark Ingram's agent tried to pull 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Where his agent calls up the so-called insiders and says, "Hey, we're taking offers from the Ravens worth about this much." No, it wasn't worth about that much. But you tell the Ian Rappaports, the Jason Lockenforas, the Mike Florios, they put that out there. So Loomis and Peyton will see that on the news, and it says, that they're mulling an offer with the Baltimore Ravens worth this much to try and get the Saints to increase the amount of money they want to offer these, to them. And it backfired because the Saints don't play that. They're like, no, this is how much we're going to pay you. This, take it or leave it. They did it to Von Bell this year, so that.
Where did he go?
Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Cincinnati. So, Calvin, I don't blame you, man. Wasn't that long ago on Saints Twitter that they were calling him 2 firsts and a bust, and they wanted to trade him. Oh, and by the way, you know how many sacks Clowney has this year?
Let me see. That would have to be a nice round number.
Exactly. Oh, and he's injured again. A guy with injury history. So, yeah. It's just it's unbelievable. It really is, and I agree, Calvin. I've been a Davenport supporter from the get-go. When he practically killed poor Alex Smith when we played the Redskins in 2018 on that sack, I'm like, this is the kind of guy you want. This is an animal, and I was impressed with him in 2017. I liked him in 2018. It just, yeah.
Well, see, he does have the advantage of the defensive line room being quite full. Mm-hmm. So the pressure for him to come back from injury hasn't been as great as it would be if that weren't the case.
But he's a freak athlete. That's the thing about him. His speed, his quickness, the size, his power. When he finally gets it all together, and it's coming, you can see it every week. But when he gets it all together, he's going to be unblockable. And people are going to be talking about him. He is going to be a guy that's going to be rising up that sack chart right behind Cam Jordan, right behind Ricky Jackson and Pat Swilling, and even Leroy Glover, all those guys, Wayne Martin, all those guys who used to make so many sacks. Davenport's right there with those guys. He is going to be that kind of player. He has to get over the injuries, and I think he's so young. That's the other thing. He's 20. I think he's 22 years old. He is so young. He's just learning that position, and it's coming together. But the speed and the power and the strength are just unbelievable. When I watch him play, he got the one big sack, to end the game. But earlier in the game, there's 2 or 3 other opportunities. He had a chance to really kill Bridgewater, and they chipped him or got a piece of him or made him stumble just enough for Bridgewater to get away from him. But, you try and block him one-on-one, he's killing you. He really is. I mean, he's got to get the consistency, get back into football shape. They're rotating him a lot. He's on a pitch count, it looks like, because, I saw Ganderson out there a few plays. I saw, of course, Hendrickson was out there a lot. So he's rotating in a lot. But when they feel comfortable enough to let him stay out there the whole time, he's just going to be an animal. He is going to be a guy that defensive coordinators offensive coordinators are going to have to worry about. The only thing I'm disappointed about is Cam Jordan. There's something wrong with him or something going on with him because, fans keep saying, well, he's being double teamed and triple teamed and stuff like that. He really wasn't against Carolina. He went one-on-one really most of that game. And in fact, they were bragging about that they silenced him. Because Cam Jordan was talking shit about the kicker when he went for that 65-yard field goal. They didn't really rush him or anything like that because they knew he wasn't going to make it.
He almost made
He
it.
almost did. That's how important that sack was. I was surprised at how straight and how powerful that kick was.
Yeah.
But in the stadium, they played a video of him last year blowing that kick against the Saints that helped the Saints win that game, in the dome.
Yeah.
And Carolina's Instagram page, like typical classless Saints. I'm like, I shared a picture. It was the Dead Sea is the saltiest body of water on the planet next to your bitch ass. I mean, it's just
But
yeah.
I mean, we talked about it on here last week how we expected it to really be a blowout, and unfortunately, I didn't get to see it. But I mean, when I wake up and I turn it on and I see the score, I think, well, we've underwhelmed again.
Well, I got to go on the Cat Chronicles thing on Wednesday night. The Tony did a behind the lines, scouting the enemy kind of podcast, and he asked me to be on the show, so I went on the show, and we talked about the weaknesses, and he said, Carolina really struggled in the red zone. And I said, well, that's okay. Our defense struggles in the red zone too. So it's going to be the movable object meeting the resistible force. And that's exactly what you saw on Sunday. I mean, the touchdown to make it 17-10, it looked like the Saints didn't even put much of an effort in the tackling. Craig Robertson whiffed on a tackle. Bond overshot a tackle. It was one of those. It's why that game ended up being as close as it was. To me, the turning point would turn this game from a blowout, potential blowout, to a nail biter that went down to the final possession. Was the Saints were driving. Armstead gets hurt. He injured his elbow or his arm. They tried wrapping it. He tried to go back in a couple more times, but Hurst, the tackle we brought in from the Indianapolis Colts, he went in at left tackle. He got blown up. Oh, my God, it was horrible. And he did a strip sack fumble of Drew Brees, and that killed a drive that could have made the score either 17-3 or 21-3 if they score a touchdown. Well, that was the drive that this Carolina went down the field and Teddy Bridgewater hit the wide open DJ Moore, made it 14-10. And then the next series, they made it, I think it was, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. They scored 14. It made it 14-10. Saints were driving, turnover. They converted that to a touchdown to make it a field goal. No, a touchdown, make it 17-14. I had to think about how this game went because Morstead never punted. So, we were never stopped on third down. We were never stopped on fourth down. So, the only good thing about that was when they made it 17-14, that's how you knew it was going to be a close game. But Brees went right down the field, 2-minute drill. I think he used one timeout. They had one timeout left. Got down to in the red zone, 5 seconds left. Got time for one play, maybe. This was a risk because, if you don't complete this or he gives a sack, you don't get any points. Brees hits Deontay Harris right there on the goal line for a touchdown, make it 21-17. It was a huge play, momentum shifter. Carolina comes out in the third quarter, goes 3 or 4 and out. I'm not sure how many plays. I think they may have gotten one first down. Punted. Saints went down the field. Callaway had his touchdown taken away. Settled for a field goal. Then that's where we were talking earlier. So, yeah. I mean, that was that kind of game. But long drives. I mean, the Saints' first drive took almost 9 minutes of the first quarter. So I think it was only 4 possessions or 5 possessions in the entire first half.
Yeah.
That's the kind of game this was, and that's what kept it from being a blowout too. If the Saints would have scored early, it might have changed the complexion of the game, instead of giving up the fumble. But there was only 7 drives for each team the entire game, and the Saints' 7th drive was a kneel down to end the game. So that just gives you an idea how efficient that offense was. It's just our defense couldn't get off the field.
Yeah. It concerned me when I saw the final score. Like I say, I was just going on supposition and the way that it felt when I watched the tail end of it. It concerned me for the rest of the season, because you got games coming up with you're gonna have a very hyped rematch with the Buccaneers in their house.
Yep.
You're going to have to face the defending Super Bowl champions. And if you go into those games playing like you're playing right now, you're going to look like the village idiot.
I thought about this earlier today. It's almost like the Bum Phillips 1983 team in reverse. And what I mean by that is Bum Phillips' teams in 83 won a lot of close games, one possession games, one score kind of games. And it seems like that's the kind of team that we have right now, that we're going to win or play these one possession kind of games, but the margin of error on those games is so thin, that's why you lost that Packers game. One possession, the turnover by Taysom Hill. One possession with the Raiders. The Brees interception, and that was the turning point in both of those games. And we're better than this, and it's so hard to win in the NFL to begin with. But if you're trying to win one possession kind of games, you're just not going to do it.
No, if you have to play down to the very final possession of the game, you have no margin for error.
Oh,
you almost have to pitch a shutout.
Exactly. You either have to have a defense that can shut the door consistently, for a struggling offense, or an offense that can score every time it touches the ball, and it's going to end the game with the ball. That's the only way you're going to win those kind of games. And, that was going to be my question that I was going to bring up last week. Tuesday is a week from today, is election day, but also is the trade deadline. So my question for everybody tonight is, if the Saints are active and decide to make a trade, what position would you want to see them get, to shore up for this run now? Because I said before the Chargers game, or even at the Lions game, that we're entering a stretch right now where we have to make that run. We have to, in 2017, 18, and 19, we had those 7, 8, 9, 10 game winning streaks in the middle of the season. So what
would be your answer then?
Well, I'm all about getting a safety or a corner, because
absolutely,
I find the secondary to be the weak link of this team right now.
That would be my answer as well. If you don't have a back end, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference what your front end does. You got to keep them out of the end zone. And the only way that you're going to do that is to have at least slightly above average secondary players. And we're not getting that right now.
Well,
you'll have a strong game by one cornerback, and then the other cornerback will blow it up. And then the safeties roll the dice and hope you don't crap out. And you can't depend on that sort of play and expect to be successful.
Well, a lot of people do want to get a pass rusher, because pass rushers are sexy. They're the sports cars of
Yeah.
the defense. That's what everybody loves.
Well, we've
And
got pass rushers.
I agree with them that the pass rush has been lacking, but I also see what teams are doing to defeat our pass rush. These guys not holding the ball 5, 6, 7 seconds and throwing it. They're running bootlegs away from the pressure. They are getting rid of the ball in 2 seconds. Yes, we've given up deep plays, but I think they've given up more deep plays because guys are wide open in the secondary more than our cornerbacks are covering them to the point where someone's eventually going to get open because we can't get to the quarterback. I see, Cameron Jordan, I just mentioned it earlier. Cameron Jordan is struggling this year. He's not the wrecking ball he normally is on that side. We've gotten stuff from Hendrickson, and now Davenport is coming along. We're not getting much of a push up the middle, although Rankins made a great stop earlier in the game for a loss right before the big touchdown pass. But I really, our secondary, if they play physical and they get, up against the receivers, we're getting flags. The safeties are out of position. Malcolm Jenkins has been a mess. Marcus Williams acts like he's never seen this defense before. This is a whole new scheme he's learning, which is why I call this episode Feels Like the First Time, because Marcus Williams is acting like this is the first time he's ever seen these defensive schemes, doesn't know what the hell they're doing, or the first time he's interacting with these players and doesn't know what the calls are. I mean, this is the shit that we were doing with, the problems we were having with Rob Ryan as our defensive coordinator, the miscommunications. We shouldn't be having these problems. So I'm about getting safety. One guy I'm hearing, Calvin threw up some names. One guy I'm hearing that's available is not Harrison Black. What's the safety's name for the Vikings?
Xavier Rhodes.
No. He's gone. They sent him. I think he's with Cincinnati now.
Wow.
That's part of this. The Vikings got rid of a lot of their veteran players because Harrison Smith, thank you. I know a Harrison Black. That's the guy that my understanding at the Vikings are shopping. And he is a ball hawk. It's the kind of guy that we need back there. People were making jokes on Twitter during the Saints game that how long is Darren Sharper's sentence for again? Think he'd be in shape when he gets out of jail, because you need somebody to get turnovers. And we don't have anybody. We have 2 interceptions for the year, and one was Patrick Robinson against Detroit, and the other one was Janoris Jenkins in the first game against Tampa Bay. You just need to get turnovers. You need to force fumbles. We were a -1 last week. We didn't get a single turnover against the Panthers. And that was the problem. The 2011 Saints team, they weren't getting the turnovers, and why the 2009 Saints defense seemed better than it really was they were getting turnovers. They were getting the pick sixes. So, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Speaking of the Falcons, because Calvin mentioned Neil. Did you happen to see any of the Falcons game after the Saints game was over with?
Well, yes and no. The Falcons have played the same damn game every week this season. It's different people that they line up against. But I heard they blew a lead in the last half minute of the game.
It was hilarious. I have never seen a defensive player get excited and throw up a touchdown signal like the Lions did and you could see it. The running back. I'm having a terrible night with names.
Gurley.
But Todd Gurley. He runs and he tries to fall down at the 1 foot line so he can take three knees, and kick the field goal and win the game. And he falls in the end zone by accident. He breaks the plane. So it's a stumble, and then he drops like right there on the goal line. So that's a touchdown.
Yeah.
And the Lions were happy. They were excited. That was the go-ahead score. Yeah. You have no timeouts. A minute and some change left. And the Lions are all celebrating like the Falcons scored to take the lead. And it's like you're watching this going, the Lions know. The fans all know. Even the Falcons defense knows. Shit. We just played right to their hands. And to see they just start throwing the ball down the field, hitting targets, and the last catch that I think it was Callaway for the Galladay, thank you. For the Lions. He catches the ball, so they have to stop the clock to review the call. So they have no timeouts. They probably won't get enough time to, maybe just a couple seconds to spike the ball and get one more play out. But because they review the play, it allows the Lions to huddle, get the play they want, line up, spike the ball with 2 seconds left to throw in the end zone to get the touchdown. The guy was wide open, too. That was the best part. Yeah. It was hilarious. Oh, my God. And, you had the image of, Gomez Adams with his mask on, sitting there with his hands on his hips, looking at us like, I can't believe this shit. Oh, it was hilarious. It was hilarious. Well, he was like John Austin. He looks like John Austin from the Adams family. Aston, yes. From the Adams family. Yeah. He was looking for Morticia,
Every time they show Arthur Blank, you sitting there looking at him like, dude, I've seen this movie before.
I mean, the history goes a lot further back, obviously, than since the Super Bowl. But really, since they blew the lead in the Super Bowl, now every time it happens with the Falcons, it's just one more. It's just one more. You are finding new ways to lose. And the losing days will come for the Saints. I know it will. It can't last forever, but right now it's hilarious.
Probably will arrive in the Crescent City sooner rather than later.
No, I don't. Yeah, it may, but I don't like thinking about it.
I like to be a realist at the same time.
It all depends on. It depends on what happens with the quarterback position, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, how Peyton does this.
Because to be honest with you, and I've said this for years to people, they ask me, well, when we talk to people from other teams, they always it never fails. They always ask us how much longer is Brees going to play. And of course, nobody knows the answer to that question. I say this will be his last year, but
it's up to Drew. I mean, I feel like it's going to be his last year too. But
I've said for years that Peyton, if Drew were to leave at the end of this season, I can't help but believe that Peyton will be within 5 years of the end of his career here.
It all depends. Listen, and this goes back to the trade deadline and stuff like that. Not that I think this is going to happen, but rumblings, and again, this could be Mike Florio bullshit kind of stuff, but rumblings within San Francisco is they're not impressed with Jimmy Garoppolo. Yes, they gave him a lot of money, but they're not sure if he is.
They didn't really have much choice but to give him money.
Right.
Because they went to such an extensive effort to get him, and he had that Patriot pedigree on his job application, so they had no choice but to pay him.
Right. and he's got him to the Super Bowl. But they feel like for the kind of offense they want to run, he is not the guy for that offense.
Well, he's played about as helter-skelter this season as I've ever seen.
Well, he's been injured. He's been injured too. But
well, I mean, even when he came back,
yeah.
he'll have a game where he looks like that kid that played in the Super Bowl last year, and then he'll have a game where he looks like Uncle Rico.
Well, I feel like Garoppolo is a Northern Illinois or whatever that school is called that Peyton and Romo went to.
Eastern Illinois.
Eastern Illinois. I knew that was wrong. Eastern Illinois. He's an Eastern Illinois alum. Yeah. Peyton liked him a lot in the draft. If the 49ers wanted to part ways with him and go get some other quarterback, I don't know who. I have no idea. This is all just speculation on my part.
Yeah.
I could see Peyton wanting to make a move to go get Garoppolo to be the next quarterback that he tries to win with, because he feels like Garoppolo fits what they want to do on offense. Not the strongest arm, but an accurate passer who, they can run a West Coast system with. I don't know. I just feel like when I heard that the 49ers may be thinking about getting rid of Garoppolo, I'm like, oh, yeah, Belichick and Peyton both would be interested,
sure,
if he would ever come loose. I can see some quarterbacks getting moved next year. I really can. And I think the Vikings are realizing they made a mistake with Kirk Cousins. And they extended him. They just gave him more money.
Again, they really have no choice because they've hitched the ship to him.
Yep. Carson Wentz is running his course with Philadelphia, but I think they get rid of the coach before they get rid of Wentz.
I don't. It's going to be hard to cut ties with a coach that had you in the Super Bowl just 2-3 years ago, though.
True, but this team looks so bad and makes so many bad decisions on the field. It's beyond injuries. They look ill prepared.
I watched them. When was it? Thursday night that they played the Giants, and Boston Scott.
Yeah,
the player we drafted, that catch that he made at the end of that game. Oh, and I'm sorry. Does anybody happen to know off the top of their head where he went to college?
Yeah, I think he went to that school up in North Louisiana somewhere.
Louisiana Tech University.
Yeah.
Yep. Go Dogs.
Yep. La Tech. I know. Yeah. I know.
Hey. I've got 12 TVs in this place, and the other night I watched a replay of UL and who was it that beat them the first loss?
Oh, Georgia.
Southern.
Yeah, Georgia Southern.
Yeah, the school that Irk Russell coached at. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a really good game.
That was a bullshit game. I was mad.
I know you were.
Man. They played. I watched them play last week. When they all wore the jerseys dedicated to the running backs coach who passed away.
Yeah.
Looney. Allison's yelling at me right now. That's not who he was. But he was a young man who passed out because she knows all these people. He collapsed on the field and died. So they wore a jersey in honor of him. His father was on the sideline. They presented him with a jersey. They played UAB. It was a really well played game. They got UAB to make a mistake, and once they made that one mistake, that's all it took. UL is more of a second half team now. And that's really.
I was really, really impressed with that young man that they had playing quarterback.
He is a good kid. Levi, he is a good kid. He's short, but he's fast, and he's pulling the trigger a lot faster now than he was last year. Because I went to some games last year. I'm going to homecoming again this year. But I went to some games last year, and that was driving me crazy watching him. I was like, throw it, throw it. My wife's like, he can't hear you. Why are you yelling it? I'm like, you got to throw it. He's open. Throw it, and he would wait that half a second too long, and the coverage would catch up. Anna says, what about Jameis as far as quarterback of the future for the Saints?
I have never, and I'll say the same thing about Jameis that I said about Bridgewater. Basically, for all practical intents and purposes, you're putting a Band-Aid on a headache. You've got a contingency plan should something happen to Drew. That's the reason that Bridgewater was brought in here. That's the reason that they brought in Jameis Winston. Now, who's to say what the coaching of Sean Payton is going to do towards changing the narrative around Jameis Winston? That's all on his shoulders. But I've never looked at either one of those guys. And by the same token, Taysom Hill, I've never looked at any of those guys as the future at the quarterback position for the New Orleans Saints. Never have.
Well, it's interesting. Taysom, they ran very, very few plays with Taysom Hill doing the RPOs this week.
Well, maybe Sean Payton watched our show last week.
Maybe he did. Maybe he read Twitter too, because everybody was on that stop running those plays. He ran one play and two plays. One, he tried to run a pass play and just dumped it off. And the other one, he did run the football, and it was basically a running short yardage play. Yeah. And I told Allison, who was watching, and I said, you can't think of him as a quarterback in that position. It was third and short. I was designed run all the way. He's a short yardage back in that regard. It's no different than handing off to a fullback, to take the first down. So
everybody makes such a big deal about Taysom Hill being a quarterback. I've never looked. I looked at him as being a running back in a Wildcat offense. That's the way that I've always looked at it.
But that's the thing. If you want to make him the quarterback of the future, let's see him run the offense and throw the ball. But he doesn't do that. He's another guy who takes too long to pull the trigger on a pass play, and you just can't have that. And maybe
in his defense, he I don't know how to say this without coming across like a dick. A jerk. Mm-hmm. The only way that he's going to learn stuff like that, you can sit there in a quarterback room and show him film and tell him and all. The only way that he's going to commit that to that muscle memory that every good quarterback has is to be out there on the field and doing it. It's experience.
Yeah. If you wanted to pull a Tom Landry and have Hill run a drive or a few series at quarterback, then you have a shot. But, you've got a Hall of Famer it's now the 6th week of the season. What did we say before? 4 weeks preseason, basically, the first 4 games of the season. People question his arm strength. They're not questioning that anymore. You're seeing you saw a very consistent Drew against the Chargers. You saw the same thing against the Panthers. I think you'll see the same thing against the Bears next week. And he looked like vintage Drew. Don't give me my best receivers. That's no problem. I'm going to make a star out of Marquez Callaway. I'm going to hit Cook. I'm going to hit, the first pass he threw. You know who he threw it to? Austin Carr. Austin Carr's one catch the whole game.
Austin Carr is still on the Saints roster?
Austin Carr was kicked up to the active roster when went to when Emmanuel Sanders went on the COVID list. But yeah, and
so how long does that put him down for? Is it 2 weeks? Or is it just until he tests?
No. He has COVID because the way Peyton was talking, he was sick. And that's why they put Crawley on the COVID list too, because Crawley was the one in closest contact with him. And no, he's got COVID. He's sick, and so he's going to be out 10 days at least. So I would imagine he's probably going to be out both games. last week and this one coming up. But yeah, so Brees is rounded back into shape, rounded back into form. So you really can't afford to take him out for Taysom Hill to get those snaps. Now, Anna says, she was talking about for trading purposes, getting rid of Jameis. And hey,
who's gonna buy it though?
Well, I'll tell you what. Allegedly, Stephen Gilmore up in the Patriots is up for trade. And you saw what Cam Newton looked like over there in New England, and they've got nothing behind him. Stidham isn't very good, and you know what Brandon Hoyer is like. So I'm like, Jameis for Gilmore. Let's go. And a 6. You can get my 6th round pick too.
Yeah.
Have at it. I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it's just that my going back to what you were saying about Jameis. My thing with Jameis is you're getting a free look, just like you got a free look with Bridgewater. Yeah. You can decide whether or not, because you got him for a year, you can see what he looks like in the quarterback meeting room, what he looks like in practice. And you got him on a cheap 1-year deal. You can decide whether or not you want to keep him or not. He's a backup plan.
If Brees does retire at the end of this season, very likely you'll see Jameis playing quarterback for the Saints next year.
Absolutely.
Very likely.
But he's going to be on a short leash, because if there's anything Peyton cannot stand, it's his offense turning the ball over.
Yeah.
So if he's turning the ball over like he did in Tampa, not just interceptions, but fumbles, be sloppy handling the ball, inaccurate passing, making poor decisions, you're out of there, and he'll go get another one.
See, that's what I mean by what I said earlier. It all depends on what the coaching of Sean Payton and their quarterback's room, how well Winston absorbs that and applies that to his game.
Yeah, I know, Calvin. And I don't think Gilmore is up for trade anyway. And you're not going to horse trade Bill Belichick. You're just not.
No.
Belichick's gonna take you to the cleaners. I mean,
every time.
What we had with that deal when we sent Brandon Cooks over there, and we were trying to get what the hell was that kid's name? The one who made the interception against the Seattle Seahawks.
Malcolm Butler.
We were trying to get Malcolm Butler so bad. Belichick was holding on to that first round pick and was going to demand that first round pick back and Cooks for Butler. So, yeah, that we were, yeah. No, John,
everybody roasted the Saints about Cooks, about us getting rid of Cooks. But what has he done since he left?
Well, he did have
three different teams.
He has, and he had 2,000-yard seasons. He had a 1,000-yard season with New England and got to the Super Bowl, and a 1,000-yard season with the Rams, got to the Super Bowl, and now he's on his third team with the Texans. And the problem with Cooks is concussions and his size. He's too small.
He's petite
to be anything more than a speed guy. When you start making him run all the routes in the tree, and safeties and corners can eye him up and take a shot at him, that's when he gets in trouble. Anna wants to know who has COVID. That would be Emmanuel Sanders.
And that was Ken Crawley.
Week. Well, Ken Crawley was exposed, so he's in quarantine.
Collateral damage.
Yeah, but yes, that's why Sanders didn't play last week. He has COVID. So, and Peyton said he knew exactly where he got it. So,
has there been any definitive word put out yet as to when we might see Thomas back? Because I heard something this
Yeah.
week about he's hurt his hamstring or something.
Yes, he hurt his hamstring. He tweaked it in practice last week, and apparently it was severe enough that they had this week's game as another game he could possibly miss. Now, they haven't practiced this week yet, and we've got Zeta now out in the Gulf, so that's supposed to come actually over this area, probably up through Port Fourchon, but coming across Port Fourchon and coming, across southeast Louisiana, not southwest Louisiana, Wednesday starting around 1:00, and then the eyes should make landfall about 7:00 tomorrow night, but by 1:00 in the morning, Thursday morning, it should already be in Alabama. So that's how fast the storm is moving. They're saying a Category 1 coming on shore. I honestly would be surprised if it holds together that much to be a Category 1. I think it's just going to be a strong tropical storm, but I could be wrong. But
well, where do we go after the Greek alphabet?
I think they start doubling the Greek alphabets, because because we haven't had Omega yet. I think Omega is the last letter of the Greek alphabet. We're only on Zeta right now. So, but you've got November 1st is supposed to be the end of the hurricane season. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see.
For those following baseball, it looks like we might actually see a Game 7 unless things change.
I expect a Game 7. I mean, it's almost like a prerequisite in baseball.
Well, the Dodgers have played lights out this entire series, and whenever Tampa wins, it's like, oh, look, they showed up. I'm mad at the Dodgers because they beat my Braves.
Well, I'm not a baseball fan, but the last World Series, and God, people are going to be going, oh my God, it's been that long. The last World Series I happened to sit and watch the whole series was the Dodgers when they played, I think it was the A's, when Kirk Gibson hit that home run.
I watched a show on that the other night. You know, Kirk Gibson has Parkinson's.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah,
but I can believe it.
They interviewed him about that game, and he looked terrible. He didn't even look like Kirk Gibson.
And
who did he get the home run off of? The greatest closer ever, Dennis
Eckersley. Yeah, the ex-Cub. When people talk about I didn't know the Astros were in the American League. That's how little I follow baseball.
Yeah. They changed that when
they reorganized. They reorganized the conferences. Yeah. I know. And so when I hear the Astros, I'm thinking International League because, again, this is how long ago I used to follow baseball. When I hear the Astros, these are the players I think of. J.R. Richards, Scott,
Dennis
Scott, and Nolan Ryan,
Jose Cruz.
Yes, that's the Astros I remember. And I'm talking those. That's the early '80s. The Mets.
And those bright multi.
The orange and yellow stripes. Yes, in fact, the Astrodome upper deck with those stripes.
Yeah.
The Mets. Well, of course, the Mets were. That was the team that they raided Gary Carter from the old Montreal Expos, but which are now the Washington Nationals. I do know that. But Gary Carter, Darryl Strawberry, Dwight Gooden.
I can remember. Probably my first favorite baseball team was the Dodgers, unfortunately. But that was different.
John Butler, greatest closer ever, my ass. Talk about Eckersley.
Yeah, he was. He really was.
Yeah, I have to say that Mario Rivera is probably a much better closer.
Mariano's butt.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, San Diego Padres, Goose Gossage.
Uh,
You know the
well,
what?
Goose started in New York.
Yes, he did. But I just remember him being a member of the Padres. Steve Garvey, who my
Yeah,
brother
Steve
hated.
Garvey,
My brother hated Steve
Ron
Garvey.
Say,
Ron
Ron
Say,
Say.
he ended up being a Cub, and I used to call him defect. He ran funny. He ran like somebody stuck a stick up his ass,
He was
literally.
bow-legged.
I mean, he. I know, but it was
They
like
called him the Penguin because of how he
I
ran.
know they did. I called him defective because there was something wrong with this dude. It was like he
Dusty
was trying to hold
Baker.
us. He was trying to hold. He was trying to hold a stick between the cheeks of his ass as he was running. That's exactly how he ran. It was the weirdest thing I ever saw in my life. He was a Cub.
I don't know
was a Cub
what
fan.
concerns me more, the fact that you went to that or the fact that you can legitimately make that claim.
I remember that just because he was a Cub. You see,
Yeah.
everybody who ended up going to the Cubs, from those other teams, I made fun of because my brother was a Cubs fan, and that's what older brothers do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Dusty Baker.
Yeah. My brother's not on tonight, so I can say these things.
But to answer your question of way while ago, I think that I guess I can say this about the only position of need, so to speak, that I would consider being a need for the trade deadline would have in the defensive backfield.
I'm if I'm making a trade prior to Sunday, I would have said receiver too. But if I'm making a trade, I want to get a trade for a cornerback or a safety. I'm more looking at safeties right now, just because somebody needs to light a fire under Marcus Williams' ass, and if it takes benching him for somebody who's a ball hawk, I'm willing to do that. I want the.
It makes no sense to me because he should have all the incentive in the world,
right?
Because we let Von Bell go, and
you're right. Well, Von Bell played strong, but yeah, I mean, you're playing for a contract. It's a contract year for you, and you're playing worse than you played the previous 3 years. And
combined.
I'm ready to part ways with Marcus Williams unless he has a dramatic turnaround, because you're not making interceptions to make up for the blown calls. I could deal with some of the blown coverages if they blew it because you went for the ball and took a gamble and just missed it, but you've been getting interceptions. Linebackers, Bond is now starting to start. They activated Kiko Alonso off the PUP list. He'll probably start playing a little bit more. I would like another linebacker, a Mike linebacker, but I don't know if you need one. I think you need a safety or a corner. And that's my concern. And I don't know what we could offer. I'm guessing it. The Saints will probably be willing to part with a 2 if, the second round pick, if somebody great came up that you had to have. But that's the.
I'll put it a different way. The only way that I'm trading an active body is for somebody in the secondary.
Yeah. And the thing right now is, unless you're the Jets or the, maybe the Texans, the Jaguars, the Vikings, you're tanking this year. I just don't. Maybe the Cowboys, if they want to send a message, although I don't want anybody on that defense. They're terrible, except for Van Der Esch. I'll take him. Injured and all. I'll take Van Der Esch, but they're not going to give him up. But yeah, so I mean, some people were talking about, Adams is gone. He's in Seattle now. But yeah, I just don't know what you could get right now from those teams that are tanking. because I don't know what they have left on the team defensively that you would really want. You're hearing rumblings that the Bengals have some players that want to leave, but the Bengals don't trade. So,
Yeah.
one last thing about baseball, I wanted to mention this. I'm I'm old, like you. So you
Oh,
saw a
thanks for
lot.
throwing me under the bus with you.
I'm just saying, we had in the past week and a half, you saw a lot of great players who passed away. Um, you saw, um, good God, man, Whitey Ford pass away. I'm too young to have ever seen Whitey Ford play, but members of the Big Red Machine, for the old Cincinnati Reds. Hang on a second here, because I'm drawing a blank on some of these guys.
Whitey Ford played with Mickey Mantle.
Yes, he did. He played with the Yankees, Mickey Mantle. But good God, I can't believe because I'm thinking of the pitchers and stuff like that. Come on, phone, come up. Joe Morgan, thank you. Joe Morgan just passed away. Let's see who else was on the Big Red Machine that I saw. Well, yeah,
I don't
Pete
know
Rose.
if he's alive or dead, but Johnny Bench, Pete Rose,
Johnny Bench is still alive.
Cesar Cedeno.
Thank you. Yeah, these names all coming. But Joe Morgan was the one I was definitely thinking of. No, Bob Gibson, that was a Dodger. But he did pass away.
Yeah,
Julio Ridley. I know the Cowboys just traded Griffin to the Lions, and the funny thing is, they got Griffin just before the season started. So it shows you how much they thought of him. Yes, Eli Apple's available. We targeted Eli Apple multiple times in the game and burned him each time. So no big surprise they released him. Yeah, the Big Red Machine with the old St. Louis the old Cincinnati Reds, not the St. Louis Cardinal. But yeah, the Cardinal was Joe Morgan. Yes, thank you.
And I didn't say that Pete Rose was dead. It's just his career.
No, yeah. I'm one of these people who feels like Pete Rose should still be in the Hall of Fame.
He should. He's earned it.
I know about the gambling. I know all that stuff. But you know what?
You got to separate it, man. You got to separate on the field and off the field.
He still broke Ty Cobb's. In fact, I watched that game when he broke Ty Cobb's most hits for a career, and he needs to be recognized for what he did. You can put a thing about his gambling, but he deserves to be in it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Bob Gibson was a Cardinal.
Yep.
Well, wait a minute. Who was the pitcher? Who was the pitcher for not Don Drysdale, but the pitcher for the Cardinals? Not the Cardinals, the Dodgers.
Sandy Koufax?
No. He was an alcoholic. Damn. I can't think of I'm sorry, guys. Usually I'm better prepared than this, but we're going back in time on some of these guys. And Don Drysdale, every time I see him, I think of the Brady Bunch. Brady Bunch. Where Greg wanted to be an all-star pitcher, and he had Don, Mike just happened to be designing Don Drysdale's home. So, Don Drysdale showed up. Joe Namath was in the episode too. So
another Rosie Greer was on there.
Well, Rosie Greer was an actor too, but I mean, it's just Koufax was a goat. Yes. Was it Koufax who was the alcoholic?
No.
Koufax no.
He was a Jewish guy.
Yeah, no. God.
I can't remember. And I didn't even catch it when you said a while ago that Gibson played for the Dodgers. But yes, it was the Cardinals. My dad said he was the meanest son of a bitch to ever be a pitcher.
Steve Howe. Thank you very much. That's who it was. Steve Howe. because he would have to go up there. I just looked it up. So, believe it or not, I looked up alcoholic pitcher for the Dodgers. That's how I Googled it. And Steve Howe came right up. So, but yeah, he died. God, he died in 2006. Oh my God. Bob Welsh was another one.
Yeah.
But that was Steve Howe was the one I'm thinking of. He was a Dodgers pitcher, and he was plagued by alcohol and cocaine because it was the '80s. But yeah, I watched baseball to about, like I said, Kirk Gibson's time. So in that Dodgers game, so I watched it in the mid to late '70s until I'd say the late '80s, early '90s, just as the Braves were getting to be good again and going to, always in the playoffs. And that's probably where I stopped, was like 92, 93, that era.
That easily could be the greatest pitching staff ever assembled, was the Braves of that era. You had Greg Maddux, you had John Smoltz, you had Tom Glavine, and that's just your starting rotation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And yeah,
it won just one World Series with that bunch.
Yep. I mean, I used to watch Nolan Ryan when he was with the Rangers and the Astros and
Angels.
Long time ago. He started with the Mets with Tom Seaver. You had the Nico brothers with the knuckleballs and the spitballs. Gaylord Perry. Yep.
Spitball.
I watched, The Wizard of Oz, Ozzie Smith.
Oh yeah, number one.
Yes, I love to watch him do the backflips and stuff. So that's when baseball was a lot of fun for me. When they wore the polyester outfits that were skin tight. I mean, I look at him today. I'm like, those pants look baggy. They're wrong.
Yeah,
it doesn't do it for me.
See, that's what I always respected about Chipper Jones, because Chipper always wore the uniform that looked like it belonged in the late 70s, early 80s.
What always made me laugh was the fact that, can you imagine if football coaches had to wear jerseys and stuff like baseball managers did? Tommy Lasorda would come out there and that with the big old Italian gut, in the Dodgers uniform. And it was just funny to see him out there, because it's like, this is an elite athlete, and here comes Tommy Lasorda in the same damn outfit, looking just like the pitcher. Big old gut. So yeah, I mean, so we used to joke all the time. Can you imagine football coaches, Bill Belichick, instead of wearing a hoodie, he's got to wear a Patriots uniform and walk out there and stuff. That would be actually entertaining.
That's not even as a perishing thought as much as coaches like Rob Ryan,
Andy Reid.
Rob Ryan would come out there looking like Tony Siragusa.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I got to make the donuts, man.
I know that. We kind of got sidetracked with baseball and stuff, but we'll see. I think the Saints do make a move. I really do. I think they make a move because Peyton is frustrated. And when you're calling out a player, they're also looking at players right now, see who they can make a move on. And I think they are going to bring in a cornerback and at least a safety if they can make a trade. It takes two to make the trade, but I would not be surprised a week from tonight. Today. We're talking about a new Saint on the roster in the secondary. Okay, real quick before we go. Predictions for against the Bears. The Bears looked like shit against the Rams last night. It was such a boring game. I didn't even watch the damn thing. But your prediction against the playing in Chicago, what do you think happens?
Well, you got the Saints that are playing helter-skelter, and regardless of what you want to think about the Bears, Nick Foles is still a Super Bowl MVP quarterback.
Yeah.
So if there's a time that he's going to show up,
Mm-hmm.
It'll be against the Saints. You can go to the bank on that.
Well, yeah, yeah, there you go. Mitch Williams. Yep. I remember and Joe
Wow,
Carter.
dang.
Yep. Um, I that'd be a hell of a move. That would be a hell of a move. Um, I think the Saints once again they're going to play it close. It's going to come down to the wire, but I think offensively they're going to be able to handle the Bears' defense. I think Ruiz, Ramczyk, and McCoy pretty much obliterated the Packers' the Panthers' defensive line Sunday. I think they can do the same thing to the Bears' defensive line, even though it's Akeem Hicks, even though it's Khalil Mack. They're built to rush the passer, not stand up against the run.
Yeah.
And I think
the last time that we played the Bears, we who was it? Erased Khalil Mack.
Yep. Yeah, and Foles has never beaten the Saints. That is true. He has not beaten the Saints, especially in the playoffs. He's lost both one. I just think that the defense is going to give up enough plays to Foles to keep it close, but they will make a play at the end again, and that should be the difference in the ball game. But I think the Saints win this Sunday. I just have a good feeling about it. If Michael Thomas comes back, even better. But if he's not there,
I don't expect him.
We saw Callaway. Callaway got hurt, by the way, but he said that he should be fine. But I think the Saints just run the ball well enough to keep the Bears' defense worn down, and Brees throws it just enough to, the short game to pick the Bears' secondary apart. And I think we win the ball game. So
yeah, that sounds about right to me too.
Okay, guys, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.